The last year of elementary school was always big for my school district, and everyone in my grade was excited. Not only were we moving on to middle school in a year, we were going to space camp. For those of you who have never experienced it, space camp is literally what it sounds like. Kids get to spend a few days at a glorified play center or a planetarium after hours and experience some of the more awesome aspects of being an astronaut. You know, the ones that don't involve cancer, muscle degradation, and diapers. Suffice it to say, little Grimbles was looking forward to sleeping in reflective blankets under solar system dioramas and eating space ice cream. Unfortunately for us all, that year there would be no space camp. Instead, my school district blew the entire budget that was normally reserved for space camp on cultural sensitivity and enrichment. What did that mean? It meant that instead of astronaut food, they gave me a trash bag, a box of newspaper, and some yarn to make a pillow with. Then, they told me I was going to spend 3 days surviving in the woods while an Inuit guide told us about Alaska Native culture. Did I mention that this happened in December? In Alaska? To give you an idea of how baked an idea this was, the snow was literally piled taller than some of the kids at the nature preserve they sent us to. Additionally, no one from the school board had planned out the last minute change, so our days were mostly spent licking birch trees for fun and trying not to freeze to death, as there are only like 7 total adults for 60 some odd children. Needless to say, the whole event was a disaster, and that was just the beginning. The entire school year that had been a riveting curriculum of things like frog dissection and trips to the Seward Sea Life Center had been shacked by this sudden push for us to understand Native Alaskan culture. Don't get me wrong, the people of Alaska have a rich tradition with really cool customs and cultures, and if that's what we had learned about, that would have been just fine. However, instead of hunting whales on the ice, on snow machines, and learning how to make berry ice cream the Alaskan way, we basically spent an entire year running around a whitewashed and sanitized gauntlet of school district approved story times 3 days out of the week. Not only were these extremely boring, but they gentrified the entire thing faster than rich Californians fleeing to a sleepy Midwest town for lower house prices. Rather than have an actual native come in and teach us about their culture, they sent in a bunch of people that all looked like Adam Sandler's kindergarten teacher from Billy Madison to lecture us on native culture. Stories, meant to relay grander meanings, were changed without rhyme or reason. No joke, we got told the uncensored story of a raven impregnating a virgin chief's daughter to give birth to himself so he could steal the sun. Meanwhile, the legend of Sedna, that involves a girl rejecting all the men in her village and marrying a dog instead, which makes her father cut her hands off and throw her in the ocean, where her fingers grow back as the creatures of the ocean, was completely rewritten. In the story I was originally told, she willingly jumped into the water to be a sacrifice, and only lost her fingers because her hands got caught in the rope on the side of the boat. Heads up, by the way, if you feel like you've been on a roller coaster up to this point, it's about to get worse. I don't know, go outside and grab on some grass or something to hold on, because we're about to discover how 3 bored teenagers caused the greatest civil rights movement in Alaska since we tested nuclear bombs on an island populated by the Aleut people in the 1970s. You see, in January 2001, a hate crime had occurred. 3 individuals, an adult and 2 minors, had frozen paintball solid and had decided to commit drive-bys in Anchorage. They are on the record claiming, and I'll get to why we know about this later, we're gonna go nail some Eskimos, before driving around to Anchorage and fulfilling their own mission statement Grove Street style. As in, these guys actually jumped in their Subaru Impreza, drove into Anchorage, and just opened fire on anybody they suspected of being both Native Alaskan and drunk. Let me break down the gravity of this whole event. Sure, on paper, it's just paintballs and drive-bys, but there's layers to this whole thing you won't appreciate until you spend some time in Alaska. First thing, frozen paintballs. I'm not entirely sure if you've ever been hit with a paintball at point blank before, but it's not great. It's not as bad as getting stabbed by a redhead who had you blindfolded on a cot in her garage, but it's still noticeable. Getting hit with frozen paintballs is, in my experience, very similar to getting hit with a BB. It's probably not going to kill you, but neither will teabagging a rat trap, and I don't see any of you volunteering to try that. There's also the discussion of their targets, a la Native Alaskans. It's no secret that despite making up less than 10% of Anchorage's population, Native Alaskans represent over 40% of all homeless. And like most things, there's multiple factors that cause this. You know how there was that practice that ended in 1939 where when a member of the tribe got old and feeble, rather than cost resources for the community taking care of them, they'd climb on an ice block and float out to sea to join the rest of the extended family on a farm in upstate New York? It's kind of like that, except not at all. Sorry, my metaphors suck, and I really just wanted to animate Grimbles floating out to sea to drown. There's many factors for the abnormally high representation of homeless natives in Anchorage. The one that seems most common is that an individual ends up in Anchorage after leaving their village for one of a variety of reasons and finding themselves without a support group. Without anybody to turn to, homelessness becomes a reality for many, and they spend years wandering the cold streets of Anchorage. Suffice it to say, these criminals could have basically shot at any homeless person and had a 50-50 chance of them being native. Despite this, they managed to screw the whole thing up multiple times. Not that anybody should be proud of being racist, but these guys were terrible at committing hate crimes. To give you an idea of how bad they were, at one point they confused a Chinese guy they were getting ready to light up like a spoon in a trap house on payday for an Alaskan. Prior to that, they actually had to confirm a guy was native before they shot him in the face. And these aren't even the worst examples of their incompetence. Remember how I mentioned that we had them on record saying their objective was to shoot drunk Eskimos? That's because they literally filmed everything. Look. If I ever committed a crime, absolutely none of you would know anything about it. I'd go, do the crime, come back, and go watch a movie or something. There'd be no evidence, no ego, nothing. Just me, a bunch of garbage bags, and no more HOA agent that says I can't beekeep because little Timmy down the street has weak genetics. These guys, for whatever reason, filmed everything. Which was basically the only reason any of them stood trial. No joke. One of the victims called the cops to report he'd been hit by paintballs, and the cops arrested him for being drunk in public rather than pursue the report. If they hadn't had video evidence, these dudes would have walked. Even then, the cops, after finally showing up to the perp's house and confiscating both the gun and the video footage, sat on the evidence for 2 months before community outcry boiled over and forced them to act. As far as what happened after the city finally got involved, the adult in the group took the brunt of it, taking a plea deal for 7 misdemeanors to avoid a felony, and got 6 months, a $6,000 fine, and 300 hours of community service. His lawyer tried to plea it down to 3 counts and reduce sentencing as his family was worried for his safety with the other inmates, but after serious native outcry, it was completely thrown out of the courts. Local tribal leaders almost rioted over this. Side note, and I'm only mentioning this because this part of the story warms my heart, as this guy was 19 at the time. He was able to be charged as an adult. After the lawyer his parents paid for couldn't get his charges moved from solitary to house arrest, one of the victims, having heard about the court case, sued his family, but settled out of court for 10 grand. I'm sorry, but watching somebody actually physically pay for their crimes, it just brings a tear of joy to my eye. As for the other 2 youths, the whole thing was handled in juvenile court. As is common with crimes handled outside of adult court, most of it got covered up. Except, it didn't. You see, I knew one of the shooters because we were in the same Boy Scout troop together growing up. This guy, who drove the car and shot off paintballs the same as the other 2, was the Star Eagle Scout of the troop. As in, he was literally the Scoutmaster's right-hand man and everything. Officially, he was suspended from his high school when the charges came forward, but as this happened in March of his senior year, instead of suspending him, they just gave him his diploma early. I have no idea what happened to the other guy, but as he wasn't touted around in my face as the model citizen I should look up to in life like the Boy Scout, I don't actually care. I realize this isn't the most interesting story in the world, but the simple act took a lot from people. For a handful of homeless trying to survive in a cold January winter, it robbed them of what little dignity they had left. For the native population as a whole, it took some of their self-worth from them to know that people could attack them without serious consequences. And most importantly, it took space camp from me. And that, as I'm sure you'll all agree, is the worst crime of all. That's it for this video. I'll see you all on the other side. As far as weird games to play in cars go, I don't get like the whole racist ones like paintballing natives or spoons. The one we always played was sex, and to play that, you get 5 guys, throw them in a VW Beetle, and you have to drive to no less than 10 stoplights but no more than 25. And the way it works is every time a light turns yellow, either the light immediately in front of you or the light immediately after that, everyone in the car has to throw their hand to the roof and yell sex. The last guy to do it has to take off one article of clothing, and then at the end of the game, when we all decide to be done, you have to walk into a fast food establishment as stripped down as you made it. Yeah, I got kicked out of like 2 Jack in the Boxes this way. Anyway, end of this video game next time. Catch you guys later.